Hi, it's Scott Jansen here. Today I want to talk about metaphors and how to stop or sort of resist pre-planning your sessions as a therapist. Now, it's very commonplace for a hypnotist to pre-plan techniques or pre-plan scripts or pre-plan metaphors. You might spend a couple of days for a client coming up with stories. You may spend the first couple of hours before your session thinking of, okay, I'm going to use this technique for smokers. I'll use this technique for weight loss. I'm going to use this sort of method for anxiety. So what I want to do in this small video is offer some clues and hints in how you can actually stop pre-planning your session and get more from the session, which gives you a better and more powerful outcome. So as a hypnotist, we need to keep one thing very clear in the back of our mind. It is that our client will do all the work for themselves. Our client will resolve their own problem as long as we put them in a state or a place where they have access to unlimited resources. And this is the unconscious mind. So what happens when we're talking with a client? We tend to have all these ideas, and I run foul of this myself. We tend to think and pre-plan of all these ideas of how I'm going to help my client. For myself, the thousands of clients that I've seen many, many smokers. So what tended to happen with me when a smoker would call up and say, "Hi Scott, I need to book in," I would think, wow, this is easy. You're a smoker. I've worked with thousands of smokers before, and already I'm taking the position as a hypnotist that I know more about your problem than you do. Regardless of if I've seen 1,000 smokers, 10,000 smokers, a million smokers, we need to keep in the back of our mind that every client is different. So let's say my client comes in and I have a specific technique that I like to use for smokers and a specific method that I like to endorse when I'm working with clients that need to quit smoking. I am now putting myself in that position to know more than them. And at this point, I'm actually limiting my client's success. How does this happen? Well, we'll look at it like this. Myself, consciously, I could think of, the 7 to 9, maybe 10 different things I could do for a smoker. But a client has unlimited resources in the unconscious that would help that person get through smoking. So as soon as I start to think of what I could do for them, I'm limiting them and I'm taking the role away from the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind does not like that. Have you ever worked with resistant clients before? Have you ever had clients that no matter what you try and do, what you try and plan, they just don't seem to quit or get past their problem? And this is why. As a hypnotist, we need to avoid and resist as much as we can pre-planning anything. Now you might be thinking, well, I won't know what to do. And that's exactly the place you need to be. Think about all your skills, everything you know as a hypnotist or a therapist. Where is it? Is it conscious or is it residing unconscious? Have all the skills that you've learned that sometimes you don't need access to all the time. Where does that information go? You'd be correct in thinking it's your unconscious mind as well. So if we want our clients to change unconscious, we need to go into a session more unconscious and stop planning things consciously. As a hypnotist, we do not need to know anything about how to help our client. We won't know anything until we start to ask them questions. As the video we worked on before this in regards to the hypnotic interview stage. That hypnotic interview stage is there to find out leverage. It's to find out content about the information. It's to find out when and where our client, if we're working with a smoker, when and where they smoke. What has to happen before they smoke? What happens after they smoke? Who has to be around them to smoke? What are the triggers? What are their leverage points? What are the emotional constructs? And this is what the interview stage does. It reveals all this information that I can then use during the session. It becomes my hypnotic content. But if I go into it thinking, well, I use this sort of strategy and this sort of method for smoking, I'm preempting the way that I think my client should quit. And it's a very hard basket that you put yourself in when you go about it in this way. So the next point I want to bring up is this idea of using metaphors and stories and more the confusion type methods that we have available to us as a hypnotist. Even if you're working with stories or metaphors, we even need to resist pre-planning those. Because believe it or not, all the leverage points, all the emotional constructs, all the information and the hypnotic content that our client gives us during the interview stage is all the content you need to create a story. Let's talk about a hypnotic script for a moment. A hypnotic script may have the induction at the very start, and then during the therapy it tends to be a story. A more classical story for a quit smoking is someone walking through a house and cleaning the whole house, dusting out the corners, opening up the cupboards, cleaning everything out. making the house look very healthy, making the house look very clean, spick and span, a nice smelling house. They can hear the metaphors for a smoker. A smoker wants to clean out their health, clean out their lungs, wants to have better health, wants to feel better about themselves. So you can hear how the metaphor will transfer into a smoker. There's one thing to think about. Who came up with that metaphor for a client? What if a client cannot connect to someone cleaning a house? What if a client cannot connect to someone walking down a beach? What if a client cannot connect with someone swimming in an ocean and going to the bottom of an ocean and finding a treasure chest? These are more classical hypnotic scripts that you'll see out there. So I want you to think about this in the back of your mind as a hypnotist who wants to reach the levels of upper success. Is if you're spending your time writing these scripts, if you're spending your hard-earned money buying scripts, if you're spending your hard-earned money going to training where they are teaching scripts, always keep in the back of your mind, the scripts that you're practicing with are ones that you have come up with. All you need to do is transfer that idea into listening to your clients better. Your client will tell you what they like to do, what they don't like to do, and they'll give you clues to metaphors and things you can use to come up with stories on the spot. Now, metaphor can be pulled out of anything. You have a specific scenario in the metaphor, the client will connect to that because it's their information. I'm using all the content, or as a conversational hypnotist, we are learning to use all a client's content and transfer that into a very simple story. So as a conversational hypnotist, what we find special with our students is they're going into a session not preempting anything, not assuming anything, and getting nothing prepared. Imagine this for yourself. Imagine booking a client in and not having to spend 2 hours before your client comes in preparing everything, getting everything ready. All our therapists need to do is know where to start. And that first start could be that part of the hypnotic interview, which is, what's the problem? Client answers. Whatever that answer is, we have the first bit of content. Then from that question, we may ask, well, when and where does it happen? They might have said, well, I want to quit smoking. We say, when and where does it happen? Well, I tend to smoke when I'm stressed out at work. We have more information. We have the stress, we have the work, we have the quitting of the smoking. We have what we could create a small story from. We could start to talk about someone at work who is stressed, who overcomes a big hurdle at work and feels good about themselves. Now you can hear that metaphor being transferred into smoking, quitting, feeling good about themselves. But we have used our clients' content. I've thought of nothing. We as conversational hypnotists have thought of nothing. And what this does, it gives us more of a freestyle approach. It takes the pressure, and this is what's most important, this is what I love to see when we're teaching this to our therapists. It takes the pressure off off a therapist to know what to do. It takes the pressure off the therapist having to analyze and think about, what am I going to say to my client? Because we need to realize that we don't have to do anything. Our client will give us all the content we need to do everything that script does without the 2 or 3 hours preparing it, and without that 2 or 3 hours having to maybe spend your hard-earned money scouring the internet trying to find a script that suits this. So always keep that in the back of your mind. If you are buying scripts, you're happy to do that, fine, excellent. I really hope it works for you. And if you're getting results, even better. That is fantastic. But always think in the back of your mind, who is preparing that script? Who is preparing all the content? Am I the therapist doing all the work? Or am I going to be more strategic and allow my client to give me all the content I need with some strategic questions? So that's just to keep in the back of your mind. To remember, your client will give you all the content if you listen. We need to resist pre-planning things. We need to resist thinking we know more than them. As soon as we take the position of the almighty therapist, because we've worked with many clients before, we are doing our clients a disservice. Go into a session only knowing one thing, where to start. And all it has to be is your very first question. So that's all for now. Take that on board. I'd love to hear your success with this, and hope to see you on one of our later videos. Bye for now.